Oh my goodness, isn't this an incredible quilt? This Hawaiian quilt is a beauty, and it's the quilt that I'm going to feature in this episode of Lessons from an Old Quilt. Before we dig in, my name is Chris O'Neill from Sew the Distance. I'm so glad you're here. I got this incredible beauty at an auction a few weeks ago. Fell in love with it. I first saw it on the preview and knew I had to own it, and ended up spending a wee bit more than I normally do. If you've seen some of my other videos, you know I usually get these quilts for a song. I paid $110 for this one. Worth it, I think, because it's so amazing. I also purchased a few other quilts, which you'll see in the upcoming months. I can't wait to share them. This particular quilt measures 90 by 90. This hand applique has this Hawaiian motif where it's all one piece. It's a 2-color quilt, as you can see, and it's spectacular. So let's jump in and see what we can learn from this amazing beauty. I'm so excited to share this quilt with you because it's so incredible. I just love it. Okay, so this block, this motif, it's one piece that is appliqué down, which is something you always see in Hawaiian quilts. It is needle turned to applique, and the reason I know that is because there's a few stitches that are coming up and you can see how it was turned under. These are easily fixed, however, which I will go back in and repair just to make sure that this quilt has as long of a life as possible. The quilting on this, I think, is the star. I mean, well, the pink is the star because it's a 2-color quilt and I love this bubblegum pink. However, the quilting just makes this quilt. The maker quilted within the motif as well as on the outside of it, giving it a wonderful dimension. And then this circle, oh my goodness, this circle, well, double circle really, that is quilted on the inside. I don't know if you've ever tried to quilt a circle. They're not exactly easy to quilt, and this maker did a beautiful job. The blocks themselves are sewn together by machine. There are 16 of these wonderful blocks, and then the maker also quilted along the seams, giving it that added dimension. Now you probably noticed there is a stain here. There's quite a few stains on this. However, the whole thing is very clean. I think it was washed before the auction, although I'm not sure. It smells wonderful, that's for sure. Another thing that is important to note, however, is there is some pink, I guess, pulling, if you want to call it that, of what I think is dye that ran in the seams, which is unfortunate, but then again, it gives us this wonderful pink patina that goes along with the quilt. I love that. The background is supposed to be a white, I believe, and it's just wonderful. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the borders because they're really cool too. And then wait till you see the back. Oh my goodness, the back with the quilting. Oh, it's incredible. Okay, here is the border. You can see that we have the same motif that's here. The maker just took this one and straightened out those edges. They almost look like a row of cactus or something, cacti, I guess, along the border. They're so pretty and so cool. And again, we see that same quilting that is done in the main motif. It's repeated here, giving it that wonderful consistency. And yes, we're going to talk about this gingham binding in a minute, but first I want to show you something else with these motifs. And I guess it's the fleur-de-lis, if I'm saying that right, motifs. Definitely inspired by that. So there are 32 of these motifs, by the way, but the corner ones might be my favorite because I love that the maker tied this whole thing together by putting one on an angle like this. The maker also mitered these corners, which I love too. And that could have been because she just wanted to line this up. I'm not sure why they're mitered, but they are, and that's so wonderful too. All right, let's talk about that binding. This pink gingham binding. Oh my goodness, it just adds a sense of whimsy to this quilt while bringing it all together. Usually with 2-color quilts, you'll see the binding will be one of the 2 colors, but this maker used both. It's also a bias binding, meaning it was cut on the diagonal, gives it a little bit more stretch, and it's probably why it's in such great condition. It was machine stitched to the front and then turned to the back and whip stitched on the back, and you can see that here. All right, I'm gonna show you this quilting on the back because it's incredible. So let's take a peek. So let's look at this wonderful backing. Oh my goodness, it's so nice and you just want to run your hand over it. It's wonderful. The fabric is a light pink. It's so pretty. It just complements the front really well, and it's just, oh my goodness, I love it. I think the back is even prettier than the front. Well, maybe not, but close. The backing is almost one piece, and let me show you what I mean. We're gonna slide it down here. If I can hold it, you can see that there is a seam right here. Again, we see some pink that maybe bled from the front through, but that's where your seam is. So the backing wasn't quite big enough, and the maker seamed it together and seamed it by machine. In fact, the maker even had to piece some smaller pieces over here that you can see. So it's okay to do that, right? As quilters, we need to be okay with piecing backing. This doesn't take anything away from the quilt. In fact, I think it makes it a little more interesting, and it's just wonderful. Isn't it incredible? Isn't it a great quilt? Oh, it's definitely becoming one of my favorites. I know I say that all the time though. But as modern makers, we can learn from this quilt. There's a lot of lessons we can learn, and I picked 3 that I think we all can maybe get a lesson from. The first thing is the piece backing. I personally have piece backings. I know many of you have too, but I've never pieced it quite like this. I think I would have been really discouraged if I saw that the backing that I chose wasn't big enough for the back of the quilt that I was making. However, this maker just persevered and pieced it together however they could, and it really doesn't take away from this quilt at all. I need to remember that as a modern maker. The next thing is the gingham binding. I mean, come on, how cute is that? I love that touch. Adding those little special touches like this make quilts special in my opinion. I love that part. And finally, the circle quilting, double circle quilting that's in the center of these Hawaiian quilted applique designs is so perfect and wonderful, and it really does give a lot of texture to this already incredible quilt. And then I'm gonna throw in a bonus lesson for anybody out there who is collecting old quilts or buying old quilts. Try to find out some history about them when you're at the auctions or yard sales or wherever you might find them. I got the wonderful opportunity to talk to the family of this maker and find out information about her, which is such a blessing in my opinion. It just adds to this quilt even more knowing a little bit about the maker. And yes, I did try to talk the family into keeping the quilts, which I always try to do, but they said she was just such an avid maker. She made quilts for over 80 years and had so many that the family all got what they wanted, and these had to go to auction. I, of course, will label this quilt to make sure her legacy does live on. If you want to find out some details about the maker, you can check that out on my blog. I didn't give a ton of details because I wanted to protect the privacy of the maker's family, but there is some information there. I hope you enjoyed seeing this incredible quilt. It's a gem. I love it. I have many more quilts to come, including many quilts from this particular maker. I also have the hexagon quilt that will be coming up in a few weeks. I have one in between that's a Easter-inspired quilt, or to me it reads as an Easter-inspired quilt, so I'll be putting that one up next, and then I'll have the hexagon quilt that everybody wanted to see coming up after that. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you take some time to sew, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.